Okay, we're live. Excellent. Good times. Oh, just let the numbers build up a little bit. But we're doing okay. Okay, let's do it, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, and action. Good evening, everyone, or good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you are. Welcome to a Paratrooper and a Yogi walk into a bar. Yet again, our Monday night chat with me, Andrew Fox, and Shana Meyerson, who you can find on Substack for all her excellent writing about Israel, or you can find her wherever you watch your podcasts, and it's the Yoga of War podcast. YouTube's the main one, but you can find it everywhere. So that's Shana, and she's my weekly ranting buddy on a Monday night.
So excited to join you. Lunchtime here in Los Angeles. There he is, the Captain America of England, Andrew Fox. And that's Mr. Andrew Fox. Oh, you have a Captain America shirt on. Okay, that was totally rando. He did not know I was going to say that. Agree? Every week I just...
Agreed.
So that was way apropos. Andrew Fox, which of course everybody knows is Mr. Andrew Fox here on Substack and X. Andrew, what have you for me today?
So we're talking about lies today. We're talking about lies and untruths because, as I wrote recently on one of my Substack articles, like by any rationale, the case against Israel should be put to bed by now. Like the amount of nonsense that's been exposed in the last 2 weeks is off the charts. We've got the 972 article where they talked about how something like 83% of dead in Gaza were civilians because they've got one list, and apparently if it wasn't on this one list, then they must have been a civilian. Utter nonsense. Debunked immediately. It was probably the easiest debunking of any paper during the war. You've got the International Association of Genocide Scholars, who turned out to be a bunch of Iraqis who signed up for $30, and that hit the front page of global headlines, saying that the experts have said it turned out to be complete nonsense. We've had the propaganda apparatus in Gaza exposed to the world by Doron Kadosh, brilliant exclusive, talking about how Hamas have run their campaign of bullshit from Gaza, and on and on and on. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Shana, which lie would you like to bring up first? Take your pick. There's a panoply of them.
Okay, wait. You want me to start with the first lie, or you want?
I think you should go with the first lie. You should. Look, I've introed it. I think you go with the first lie. Otherwise, it's just me talking, and nobody wants that.
Okay. No, actually, I think everyone wants that, but that's another story. Okay, where do I begin? I have to say, Andrew, when you said that you wanted lies to be the topic for this week, it's like, where do you begin? Where do you even begin? Because the truth is, it's all lies. I don't want to steal your fire on some of your best lies. So
steal it all. Go for it.
Is it okay if I start with the International Association of Genocide Scholars? Okay, because who doesn't love a good scholar? And I mean, honestly, when you hear the name International Association of Genocide Scholars, that's like right up there with like United Nations. It sounds like such an amazing and honest brokers of truth and morality. Yes, folks, IAGS. I keep wanting to call it a C. I don't know why. Is a platform where both Hitler and Cookie Monster can actually join the same club for the low price of just $125. As Andrew said, you could always count on Reuters to spread the good news, as the BBC, NPR, The Guardian, PBS, I'm sure CNN. I didn't even bother checking once you get it down a certain layer on the list. Believe it or not, even Al Jazeera, I know. Amazing that even Al Jazeera would spread anti-Israel propaganda, but all the jihadi mouthpieces lined up on this one to report this. And Andrew, do you know Elliot Malin?
I know Elliot extremely well. He's a great friend of mine. Really good guy.
Okay. Do you know what happened with him when it came to the association?
In the sense that they kicked him out and froze his thing, even though he is the guy in Nevada who runs a Holocaust charity and has codified the Genocide Convention into Nevada state law. So he's about as good a legal expert as you get on genocide. And they were like, no, absolutely not. You're not the kind of person we want. Thank you.
With no explanation from what I understand, but I don't know him personally. I just know him from afar. You're the guy who knows the people. I'm the one who follows them on X, or the girl. But I do want to say, as goes the way of all the dodos, the venerable IAGS. I can't memorize that acronym because there's no point in doing it. They've already removed their profile on X and deactivated their public members directory. So, Andrew, now you and I will never know what Darth Sidious really has to say about Gaza.
Well, fortunately, if you go to Mark Zlotchin's page on X, it wasn't Mark recorded it was somebody that Mark retweeted, but that's where I saw it. Somebody was able to get in there and capture the whole thing before they closed it off, so you can actually see how their membership was going. And prior to 7th of October 2023, about 150 members. Since then, now about 400, including one family seemingly from Iraq, all with the same name. And then of course the vote that they took, there were all sorts of allegations about how they didn't do the consultancy on it that they promised, how it was actually only a tiny percentage of even the membership they've got who voted for it. So complete nonsense, start to finish. But it's what we call halo effect, where people attribute enhanced status to organizations just because of the name or who they are, because it carries credibility. The UN is the perfect example. Numerous NGOs like Amnesty or HRW or some of these other kind of NGOs have halo effect as well, and it gives them basically credibility they don't deserve. So people don't judge their output based on their output; they do it based on what they perceive a non-government organisation to be. Médecins Sans Frontières, perfect example.
Right.
So halo effect.
A paratrooper and a Yogi walk into a bar. I mean, who doesn't look at that and go, "Those are the people"?
That's legit. That's got to be sound. Who are these crazy people? Yeah, so that's I think the IAGS put to bed, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Although, Did you see Elliot also put together a letter that completely rebutted it with about 400 different people, 400 different names of people on there who are experts in their fields. And somehow one person crept onto there that shouldn't have been on there. I know Elliot; he's a man of utmost integrity. He'd have never added someone without their will. So someone's played silly buggers, and now they're trying to say that Elliot's letter is just as invalid as the IAGS's, which is clearly nonsense, but good example of the false equivalency you see constantly in this conflict.
I have to say, Andrew, what's disappointing to me is that these lists, so far as what I understand, his list was almost all Jewish and Israeli people. Now, I don't personally have a problem with that because I know I'm on the right side of history. However, there are two problems. One is the world automatically discredits it as biased because they're Jewish and or Israeli. But the second problem, let me say this out loud, is that non-Jewish people in general, not you, Andrew, can I just quell for a second at what a hero of the Jewish people you really are? And there are other people like you who have really stood up for truth and morality in this really dark moment. But where are the genocide experts who are not Jewish, who are not Israelis, who do not have skin in the game, but understand what genocide is? Why aren't they signing on to this letter? That is the problem.
Well, it might be that it didn't reach them in time, but it's incredibly what's the word? I'm trying not to swear, but it's you attract a lot of crap if you put your head above the parapet on this issue.
Yes.
And quite understandably, there are a lot of people that just don't want to because they don't want the relentless abuse that comes with standing up for the Jews. Look at General Sir John McCall, former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander, NATO. He went into Gaza. He looked at kind of everything the IDF were doing. And I was on the flight with him out to Israel, and he was very skeptical of the IDF and the way they were conducting operations. He gave Bibi a really hard time to his face. came back, wrote a letter for the Times saying, "Yep, Israel's doing everything that we would do in terms of proper targeting and proper protection of civilians." And the sheer abuse that he got, I think, was a very bruising experience. And quite understandably, he's gone, "Hey, I'm a retired 4-star general. I don't need this. I'm out." And I don't blame him for that either. He went there and acted with the utmost integrity, but yeah, got abused to the end of the earth and back. So I think that's a lot of reason why people don't do it. It's because they know that if you put your head up on the kind of pro-Jewish side, pro-Israeli side, then you're going to get hammered. And it is what it is.
It's a sad and sick state. And I do want to take a moment to plug, not me, but your new show, The Brink. I listened to your and Jack's first podcast or pre-podcast this morning. And the reason I'm bringing it up is not just because it was a really, really great and strong statement against anti-Semitism, which I appreciate. But the first push notification I got on my phone was some psychotic, anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist who wrote like a 10-page comment. And I'm like, thank you for proving the point. And I mean, this is the sadness, though. And I can't say this enough, though, Andrew. The silent majority is not the majority as long as it stays silent. Likewise, when the silent majority starts speaking, nobody will be afraid to speak anymore. And so it takes people to take these brave first steps to stand for what they believe in. But the story you just told me broke my heart. I'm I'm thinking about our conversation last week when I asked you about abuse that you get online, and you're like, I just moved past it. Like, I can't deal with that. And you know what? That's how it has to be. But I have to say, I assume I had like a similar learning curve that you did, where at first the abuse really hits you in the core, in the gut. And then after a while, you're like, God, this isn't worth my time. It's not worth my energy. It's not worth my mental real estate. Block, delete, block, delete, block, delete, or ignore.
Yeah, I don't even look at X anymore. I send my tweets and then I just let it go, because it's just not worth looking at the replies unless it's somebody I know, and then I've got it set. I've got it set so that flashes up and I can respond to anyone, or if I do happen to accidentally catch one, I'll reply with. But I'll never give any serious argument time to anyone who's a dick. It's just not worth your time. There's no point.
You used to.
It's wasted. I used to, yeah.
And I was so amazed because I would watch her. I'm like, he's engaging with these people. But yeah, after a while, you just say, I've got better ways to use my time.
Yeah, lessons learned, improving, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, there we are.
Okay, lie number 2. Go for it.
I'm going with famine. Let's go with famine, shall we? The old IPC. Now, look, I'm in a relatively unique position. I'm one of very few people that have been into Gaza on numerous occasions during the war. I was the first neutral observer to go to the GHF sites and observe one of their distribution sessions. I've seen that life in Gaza is a misery for the Gazans, and there's no point. There's no need to say that it's not. There's no. You don't lose any points by understanding that these people are living in horrific conditions. Like Rafah is bulldozed. It's absolutely rubble. The people are having problems getting food. They're people who are hungry, and it doesn't, damage the argument to agree with that point. It just is a thing.
Sure.
It's a war zone. There's a reason that death, famine, pestilence, and disease all go hand in hand. They're the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse for a reason. Those 4 things go hand in hand. It'd be astonishing if it was a war zone and there wasn't disease and there wasn't famine or hunger, shall we say? It happens, and then you add into that Hamas stealing the aid. You add into that the failure of the UN to protect their aid convoys, where 85+% of their aid going to Gaza has been stolen.
And that's in the UN reports. We need to point this out because every time someone says that's more Israel lies. This is stuff that is being buried by the UN in their own findings.
Yeah, it's their figures. That's all I'm quoting. And even by their figures, there is enough food in Gaza for everyone, but some people aren't getting it. Does that make it a famine? No, it doesn't. And if we look at what the IPC have done, they've appointed 2 anti-Israel activists to their committee that make these decisions, and they've changed the goalposts. They've changed the measurements for famine. And look, if it was a famine, you're meant to be seeing hundreds of deaths from starvation a day. We're seeing barely 100 so far off the top of my head. It's nowhere near the figures that might be a famine. Now, you might well say, well, it comes on slowly, and there's malnutrition. Yep, no argument. There's malnutrition in Gaza. 100% there is. It's a war zone. With all the problems I just articulated on top of the war zone. Yes, there's malnutrition. But they've been calling wolf on this for well over a year now. Well over a year.
You mean 48,000 babies didn't die within 5 minutes?
No, what was it? It was 14,000 babies in 48 hours, wasn't it? Yeah, that didn't happen, funnily enough.
Sorry, I totally butchered that statistic.
Tom, what's his name? Tom, whatever his name is, from the UN, said that. It's like the 500 trucks that Guterres was talking about at the start of the war. Another lie. If you go to the incredible paper by Jonathan Boxman, Danny Orbach, it is a remarkable piece of scholarship. It's 300 odd pages, debunking this stuff in depth, and the famine chapter is the biggest. And you know what I like about it? It's really balanced. They quite openly say that, they criticise Israel for cutting the aid when they did. There's no question. I think that exacerbated the hunger problems that were in Gaza. It wasn't necessarily an illegal move, but it was morally not great, and it was a mistake by Israel, and it gave a free propaganda pass to the world as well to beat Israel with, and it achieved almost nothing. So that was an error. People make errors in wars. Again, this is nothing different.
I just want to add in just one word: calculated. It was a calculated error, and these can always go one of any two ways. And hindsight 2020, and that was more than one word. Sorry, calculated. Go on.
Yeah, general hindsight never lost a war.
No.
Let's drop in some Clausewitz. Look, I used to teach war studies at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, and I always feel guilty if I do one of these things and I don't drop in Clausewitz. It's kind of the totemic text for the war studies scholar. Clausewitz talks about friction in warfare. He talks about how war makes the simplest thing difficult because of the friction that the very nature of combat creates. And unfortunately, sometimes decisions are made that aren't the right ones, and people are fallible, and generals are fallible, and they make mistakes. Is what it is. But yeah, this study by Danny Orbach and Jonathan Boxman et al. Was incredibly fair, I think, in criticising the mistakes that had been made. But we go back to Guterres, 500 trucks. You need 500 trucks of aid a day into Gaza pre-war. That's what they need to keep them going. Absolute bullshit. He pulled that out of his arse. If you look at the actual figures, it was about 70 to 80 trucks a day. And Gaza has had double that during the war.
Could you repeat that, Andrew? Because people don't understand this. That more aid has gone into Gaza since the war than before the war. And people like the lie is so huge, so ridiculous, so pervasive that you say something like that and it just goes through your mind like this is a thing that makes so much sense. But I think when people hear it, sometimes they're just like, okay. So it's a very important point.
Yeah, it is. But it's a good example of how, UN officials just make stuff up, and that we go back to that halo effect that we talked about earlier. That then becomes totemic, and then circular reporting kicks in because everyone's saying 500 trucks a day, and they're all repeating the same lie, but because it's coming from a multiplicity of different sources, now people think that's the truth. Because look, not only did UN say it, but Human Rights Watch said it, and Amnesty said it, and Yada said it, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So it's these things become kind of self-reinforcing. So it's another great example of how the lies. Like I said, doesn't mean people in Gaza aren't hungry, but famine is a very, very specific definition, and we're not seeing anything close to that.
Well,
live 3, over to you. Oh, you sorry.
If I could just make no. One more point about this, because I think that sort of the contingencies to the facts are as important as the facts themselves these days, because it's so gray. Everything is so complex, and this is not black and white. Another thing to just add on to the fact that, like, my very statement that or our statement before about how more trucks are getting in now than before the war, people need to also be stepping back and going, why were they getting so much aid before the war? And this is an important point because Hamas has said out loud, this is the government, the elected government of Gaza. They have said out loud, it's not our job to take care of the people of Gaza. It's the world's job. It's UN's job. The fact is, no, actually, it is your job. You know what's not Hamas's job? It's not Hamas's job to steal the billions of dollars of aid in order to line their terror tunnels and their pockets, to steal everything, to destroy everything, to put their citizens purposely in harm's way. So another irony is how much of the world is like, oh, America gives all their money to Israel, blah, blah, blah. Wow. Like, Israel is a self-sustaining economy that happens to have a defense agreement with America for a qualitative military edge because they are constantly under attack from terrorists on all borders. This isn't
every cent goes back to the US defense industry. They give them the money. It gets spent in America for American jobs, American defense sector profits. You know, it's a good deal.
It's a very good deal. But again, when we talk about false equivalency, the world is literally sending billions and billions. And believe me, the second this war is over, all the billions are going to flood right back into Gaza. And if Hamas is not taken out, it's going to go right to Doha, right to the palaces or whatever, the condos. It doesn't matter what they are, the bank accounts, and Hamas is just going to continue to get wealthy at the expense of their own people who will rely on the kindness of others, really nice organizations like the UN, to support them in every possible way. Because what? Because they have no agency. Nobody expects them to take care of themselves. Like, so again, I just want to get into this concept of aid. Like, what is that weird noise? Do you hear weird noise? Like, no.
Yeah, I thought it was your end.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, well.
Okay. So, let's see. What's another good lie to get into? Oh, you know what's a nice lie to sort of staff on that one? So this past week, Egypt accused Israel of ethnic cleansing. Now, whatever I said this past week, you could fill in the timeline with just about any date for the last 23 months. But I mean, this is so rich. Okay, never mind what we were just talking about, like the unprecedented steps that Israel has taken, not only to like feed, but also, as everybody knows, to mitigate civilian casualties. Oh, yeah, I don't know what that sound is, but it stopped when you took out your ear things. Are you there?
I was just wondering if it would stop the hissing if I took them out, but it hasn't.
It did. It did. So anyway, so Israel has not only been feeding them, not only been taking unprecedented measures to mitigate civilian casualties, but Egypt accusing Israel of ethnic cleansing. Let's keep in mind who is keeping the Gazans in the Gaza Strip. They will not let any refugees out, unlike every war ever, anywhere. I mean, think about Syria. Think about Ukraine, where literally millions of refugees not only left, but were welcomed, not just by neighbors, but by the people of the world to take care of them. The only way that Egypt will let the Gazans out of Gaza is if they pay, I'm hearing everything from $10,000 to $120,000, which again reminds us of this elite class wherein the haves in Gaza are hanging out in the telecafe and paying $10,000 for passage out of Gaza, and everybody else is locked in. Who is responsible for the ethnic cleansing of Gazans?
And where's the cleansing?
Huh?
Like, literally everyone is still in Gaza. Where's the cleansing?
Is it because they give them fresh water that they could clean themselves with?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only cleansing I can think of. Like, literally almost everyone who started off in Gaza is still in Gaza, unless those who've lost their lives or have taken out to Israel for medical treatment or abroad for medical treatment. Like, who's been cleansed? Like, there's still 2 million people there if you listen to the kind of complaints about the war. Like, where's the cleansing? Talk me through it. I don't get it.
Yeah. Again, it's in the fresh water that Israel is providing to the enemy that wants to see them destroyed. But let's put that aside. We also have to keep in mind Egypt's role in the hostage talks, which all accounts say that they have been sabotaging them, telling Hamas to hold out. Which means that they have continued control over Gaza, continued terror over their own people. So if there is any sort of crimes against humanity going on in Gaza beyond the fault of Hamas, Egypt is way up there at the top of the list. Not just Iran, not just Qatar, not just the Muslim Brotherhood. Egypt, Egypt, Egypt. Egypt.
Agreed. I've got a good life here. I've got an absolute solid stone cold banger of a life
Bring
here.
it on.
It is Abdul Rahim Hamdan.
Oh, the boy who lived.
Oh yeah, Amir. So you might remember disgraced former Green Beret Colonel Tony Aguilar, who was already completely humiliated. He left the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. He was sacked by them. He then begged for his job back, didn't get his job back, and threatened them if they didn't give him his job back, then he'd be their worst nightmare, I believe was the phrase. And then he went to do just that. He was on Tucker Carlson. He was on Jeremy Bowen on the BBC. And one of the centerpieces of his very, very tall tale was the story of a boy called Amir, who he saw, and he, pinched his little cheek and, gave him a cuddle or whatever it was. And then Amir was apparently shot down in cold blood by the brutal Israelis minutes after saying goodbye to the noble and honorable Colonel Aguilar. Turns out this was complete bullshit. And he was even weeping over this story on Tucker Carlson. He was shedding little tears, telling her how awful it was about poor little Amir. Unfortunately, I think he's misunderstood somewhat the amount of ingenuity the GHF have on tap. If you employ a large number of special forces operators, just to let you into a secret, they're quite good at what they do. A number of these were experts in kind of hostage recovery, and there was also obviously a really big media interest in finding this little fella, and find him they did. And he's now been evacuated from Gaza to Israel, where he is looking much healthier and happier. But the key point in here is that Tony Aguilar is an absolutely shameful liar, who has humiliated himself on the world stage. And now he's reached a new low point where he got dragged out of some congressional hearing this week, wearing his army dress uniform. By the way, as a side note, as a Brit, that's really weird that Americans do that. When you retire, you still wear your uniform. Like, I would never in a million years wear my uniform. Probably wouldn't fit into it, in fairness. But
that's exactly what I was just about to say. But the key, the people who fit into it.
Yeah, but the key point is, even if I did, I would never wear it anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's just weird. Never mind go and shout at some politicians wearing it. We can wear our berets on Remembrance Sunday. You wear your medals on, on those kinds of occasions. If there's a military themed dinner, you're in black tie, you would wear your miniatures or whatever. But for the most part, for us, you'd never touch it. Mine's, my beret's still up there on show, but it's just cool. And I had to work hard to get it.
We all know Americans are weird. Come on.
You are weird, bless you. But yeah, now Mr. Aguilar has reached a new low where he's being dragged out, and he's now talking at the CAIR conference. So he's found his little niche to make some money out of his lies, and people are buying it because it makes Israel look bad. But my word, what a humiliating exposure of his nonsense that incident was.
Andrew, what makes me sad is it doesn't even matter how many or how deeply he's humiliated. The world is still going to quote him. The world is still going to tweet him. The world is still going to take him as an expert. This is what we're up against, this hero of humanity. And by the way, I just want to make a side note about Amir. Like, what is this? Like some random Arab sounding name that he just pulled out of his butt. Like, he's like, well, I have no idea, but this seems safe. I could go with like Muhammad, Amir. Let's go with Amir. The kid's name is Abdul. Okay. Israel got him out of Gaza. Why? Because he wasn't safe in Gaza. Why? Because Hamas would have killed him if anyone found out that he was alive. The irony is thick. But Andrew, one thing that I actually, believe it or not, I didn't think of, because, I think of everything. What you said about the technology that they used to find him being the same technology that they're using to perhaps locate hostages, really gives me a glimmer of hope that because I could tell you from the sidelines, I keep wondering, like, how do they know? How do they know where the hostages are? It sounds like they know, but how do they know? But it sort of leads me to believe that the intelligence may be even better than the intelligence that I assume they have and pray they have.
No, as a side note, people might find this interesting. So I've actually been to the hostage cell of the IDF and met the colonel that runs it. Really, really interesting. They had about 3 people in that cell prior to 7th of October, and they scaled it up to over 100 soldiers overnight. It was designed for a sort of Shalit kind of single soldier abduction. So they had the bare bones, but they had to scale it up rapidly. And they use a combination of electronic intelligence, human intelligence, and various other means of detection. For the most of the war, they've had a relatively decent idea, at least of roughly where each hostage is. Even if not by name, they know there are hostages held in Area A. And actually, interestingly enough, if the IDF want to strike an area where there might be a hostage, that decision goes all the way up to Zamir, to General Zamir, for the decision. So it works directly to the chief of the staff. And yeah, they've done a pretty good job of that throughout the war. It's an impressive little intelligence operation they've got there.
Yeah. Fingers are crossed. Okay, you ready for the next lie? Boy, this show could go on for a really long time. It's basically just read any headline and there's your answer. Another lie that I would love to bring up is the fact that the lie that Hamas has offered a deal for all the hostages to come home. And first of all, they've never offered this in good faith, and they never will. We all know they never will. They have hostages that have been there for over a decade. That's how they keep their thumb on Israel. When they said that they accepted a deal for all hostages to come home, like, they purposely put in all sorts of stipulations that there's no way Israel can agree to. Like, we'll leave completely. Hamas stays in power, and it's like all the prisoners come out. And it's like, okay, that this is not a good faith offer. It's not a realistic offer. So why do they do this? Why do they put out this press release? Because they want to look like the good guy, first of all. So everybody can be like, see, just like last May. See, Hamas is they just want peace. Of course they want to release the hostages. By the way, why do they have the hostages? Okay? Like there is no good guy. If they release 48 hostages this second, the fact is they held them and tortured them for 23 months. So people are like really losing. I keep saying this. I never know the forest through the trees through the whatever it is, and not really understand. Wait, is that the right one, or is it trees through the forest?
Can't see the wood for the trees, I believe.
Okay, yeah, that's the thing. They're lost in the forest. It doesn't really matter. But everybody like just basically falls for everything that they say. And it's not only meant to make them look like the good guys, but it's also meant to make Israel look like the bad guys. It may sound like the same thing. Sound same means different. Okay, this deliberate delegitimization and undercutting of Israel, more than anything, to turn and radicalize the. I'm going to refrain from saying useful idiots because I love Israel, but the useful idiots of the Israeli citizenry, who the more Hamas turns the screws, the more they turn this on Bibi. If there were a legitimate deal on the table, I fully believe Bibi would take it. It's so transparent, and in no way do I ever criticize the hostage families and missing family forum for their desperation, because I feel that same soul level desperation to get the hostages back. But we have to put the blame where the blame is due and stop falling for the same stupid jihadi propaganda that has turned the entire world against us.
And that's a perfect segue to the comment that CSB just dropped, saying like the hostages are still in Gaza because world leaders never demanded the release of innocent people. And that's really true, I think. You know, it's always Israel stop, Israel stop, Israel must cease fire. It's never Hamas, give the damn hostages back. You know, it's never that. You know, occasionally you'll get hostages must be released, but they never mention Hamas. They never mention who's holding the hostages. It's really disingenuous, and you know, and then you've got Western European leaders and Canadian leaders doing everything they can to incentivize Hamas to keep going. You know, keep going, and you get your own state. Like, brilliant. We'll keep these hostages for a few months more. Then, thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe we can get the whole country if we hold out long enough.
Yeah, it's been so catastrophically mismanaged at that level, hasn't it? Yeah. Right. So, as a final point for me, I think what I'll do, if you wouldn't mind, Shana, is go through exactly how these lies get propagated. Let's talk. We've talked about the lies. We've talked about the lies. Let's talk about how those lies reach the wider world. Well, you'll know, of course, that Abu Ubaidah, the head of Hamas's information cell, was deleted by Israel last week. No bad thing whatsoever, frankly. But what Israel subsequently released, was Doron Kadosh, one of the Israeli reporters. He just released it in Hebrew. And I happened to stumble across the tweet and do the Grok translate thing. And I was like, holy shit, this is massive. This needs to get a much bigger exposure. Because it turns out Hamas has had 1,500 propaganda operatives working in the Gaza Strip since the start of the war. And to give you some idea of perspective, that's even more than Israel has. You know, with their full size army, they've got a cell even bigger than Israel's. And the way they work is every Hamas squad has a camera guy go out with them, and it's networked. It's broadcasting straight back to the headquarters cell. And even if that squad gets eliminated and the cameraman gets eliminated, they've still got the footage. They can still cut it, release it, use it to smash Israel with, which I think gives us a real insight into these 200 journalists. Not lie. There you go, another lie to finish on. It's very clear, I think, that a number of those were part of Hamas's military, what we in the military would call a combat camera team. It's very clear that the other journalists in Gaza, very few of them operate, if any, without Hamas's say-so, which means Hamas is a direct line. So Associated Press is fixer on the ground, Hamas-related. Reuters, same again. Al Jazeera goes without saying. But then, because there is an information vortex, and we can talk about the Israeli decision to not allow journalists in, I still support that, but I do think they should have done more embeds. They should have sent more troops forward with the IDF soldiers. Mm-hmm. You know, there are lunatics out there who do that. And I think that would have gotten maybe a bit more balance out. But still, how do you compete with 1,500 media operatives pushing out content on a daily basis? And, you know,
content is a very nice way of saying it. We're talking about propaganda, hardcore propaganda that's been in the works for decades. This is not an overnight operation. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, and it even started with 7th of October. They had journalists go into Israel with the fighters to make sure it was properly captured, and it's a very, very incredibly well swept up media operation that has paid dividends probably beyond our wildest dreams. And you can go to my Substack. I wrote an article about this the other day. I can't remember what it was called, but it's on my Substack. Have a look if you want to know more details of those Hamas propaganda operatives. But absolutely remarkable and unprecedented in previous wars. I can't think of any war that's come close to this.
Well, stack on top of that the magic of Hollywood. Is that included in the 1500? I'm not being facetious. Is it included in the 1500? Because Hollywood is a serious industry.
Yeah, I don't know that detail. But even now, the Hollywood lies, like people like, I've seen babies beheaded. I'm like, no, you haven't. You've seen dolls. You've seen AI. You've seen fake stuff. Like, bombs don't behead people.
Right.
Like, I've said it a billion times. Like, you don't drop a bomb and then miraculously someone just gets beheaded and then nothing else happens to their body. Like, if they're that close to the bomb, they get blown to pieces. And the chances of more than once a piece of shrapnel flying through the air from a bomb blast and just whipping some kid's head off, it's just bollocks. And then what you don't do is stand there with a body and start waving it around in front of the camera. It's just utter drivel. And yet people are like, oh, I've seen babies beheaded. No, you haven't. This is just Hamas deliberately tweaking the Israelis because of the 40 beheaded babies piece from 7th of October. It was a reporting error that was quickly debunked, officially denied. But obviously that still does the rounds. And this was just Hamas being, again, they've got an incredibly clever cruelty to what they do.
Yeah.
And part of that cruelty was saying, look, you can make a mistake with 40 beheaded babies and then you get laughed at for the rest of the war. We can do this and people are going to believe us. That's the cruelty in what they're saying. And yeah, they've wheeled out a family going, oh, that was my kid beheaded. I'm like, oh, how stupid you have to be to believe this. But people want to believe it. And there it is.
And again, anyway, why do people want to believe it? But I need to stack on that before you say it anyway, because there's another lie that ties so closely into this, which is the open season on journalists. This was a really fun one last week. It was for anybody who missed it the day before because it was revealed. This was a coordinated effort, a media blitz to have 150-ish media outlets simultaneously post that it's open season on journalists in Gaza, and that Israel is specifically and purposefully targeting journalists. First of all, what would Israel have to gain by targeting journalists? Like the worst thing you could possibly do if you want bad press is to kill the press, right? Because the press is going to turn on you. So let's give the IDF a little bit of credit for not being quite that stupid. But also, let's go back to really quickly what you just said about that the IDF has not been allowing journalists really into Gaza. Now, this isn't like Ukraine, which is this massive piece of land where there may be safe areas as opposed to Gaza, where the whole thing is a war zone. What happens when 20 journalists go in and only one comes out? Israel's going to be blamed for that. Nonetheless, it is the same people who are accusing Israel of not allowing reporters in that are saying it's open season on reporters. So who are these reporters if Israel is not letting them in? These people are Hamas operatives who are using press vests as bulletproof vests. And people have to understand that these reporters, these innocent journalists, are mostly Hamas operatives, or maybe Al Jazeera Muslim Brotherhood operatives. Sounds same means different. No, sounds different means same.
Yeah, you're right. And look, if you go back to 2014, there's plenty of reporting about reporters on the ground being threatened by Hamas unless they publish what they were told to do. I went to the Hezbollah tunnels in Lebanon earlier this war, and I was surprised because it was a really great story that no major news crews were there. and they'd been told that if they sent any journalists to these tunnels, their guys on the ground in Beirut would be threatened. And, I've been to Ukraine as well. I was there 2 weeks ago. And you're not allowed to run around escorted. You're not allowed to go with the Ukrainian army without accreditation. You're not allowed to, when you're with them, you're not allowed to do whatever you want and just run around the battlefield and see what happens. Armies control journalists. In Afghanistan, I had the BBC embedded with my platoon. And she wasn't allowed to run around just doing whatever she wanted. She was back behind the company commander in battalion headquarters. So, it's just this whole mythical thing like, oh, we're normally allowed to run around war zones and do whatever we want. And I think, part of the reason that Israel gets bad press is because journos don't being told no. Quite frankly, I think that there's a sort of global tantrum against Israel because they've not allowed journos in. But anyway, right, we need to wrap it on the head there.
Come in.
Let's get this one off because it's nearly 9 o'clock here. I need my Horlicks and my slippers and maybe my pipe, and get into my PJs.
Please send that photo, including the PJs. And I hope they have. Can we just play one very, very quick lightning round of lie or no lie? One question. Trump's final warning. I mean, really, his really final. No, really, this time we mean it. Final warning. Is it the final warning about the hostage deal?
What are you going to do? I just don't see what options are on the table. Like they're already pounding the shit out of Gaza City. I mean, what more is there to do? Like maybe a few American jets joining in for fun, but like the IDF have got this.
Partial deal is what else you could do. Because he's saying it's all or nothing, and that's it. This is the final warning. This is the final deal.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense to me. But we'll see. I guess we will see.
Okay. Well, get into your bunny slippers and smoke your pipe and do your things. And we'll go ahead and sign off.
We will. And, please do like and subscribe. We've got a YouTube channel, Paratrooper and a Yogi walk into a bar. You can like it on Substack. You can go to Spotify, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next Monday. We're back here every Monday and we'll find something else to rant about in a week's time.
Absolutely. Hey, Andrew. L'chaim.
Cheers. See you next time.
See you next week.